Hey, Tristan here. I'm a nutritionist and personal trainer from Northampton in the UK. And in this video, I'm going to be talking about carbohydrates and whether you actually can eat them and still lose weight. I see or hear a lot of people worried about eating carbs all the time, thinking that it's going to make them burn fat less, or it's going to stop them losing weight, all of these type of things. I help clients all the time now with these particular problems, and I just want to talk about kind of some of the myths that surround this, why we've been kind of led to believe these things, and I want to give you some solutions as to kind of better ways to go about it and kind of explain why you can actually eat carbs and still lose weight. So there's a lot of things that people tend to do. I mean, in the past, I've experienced lots of these things in the last sort of 10 years where I've been working towards my own health and fitness goals, physique goals, that sort of thing. I used to be the sort of person who used to cut bread out, not eat bread after 6 p.m, cut potatoes out, go on really low carb diets, keto diets, thinking that keto is the best thing that's going to make you lose fat. I've done all of these things, and after now having lots of experience and learning and becoming qualified, it seems so silly to think these things, but these things are still going about today, and these are a lot of things, as I say, that I help clients with overcoming, give them better strategies and an education so they can actually live a more flexible lifestyle without having to feel like they have to cut carbs out. So one of the biggest reasons as to why this is a mistake is that we have to understand that fat loss and weight loss is all about energy balance and calories in versus calories out. So in case you didn't know, calories in is all of the calories that come from all of the food and drink that we eat, and calories out is all of the energy that we expend. Now, we expend energy from just sitting and breathing and sleeping. We also expend energy from just general movement, things like our steps. We also expend energy from our exercise, specific kind of planned exercise like running, weight training, that sort of thing. If the calories coming in are more than the calories that you expend for a duration of time, many days, months, years, then you will slowly store the excess calories as body fat. And then the opposite happens when your energy that you expend is more than the calories coming in, and your body will actually go and break down energy on your body, the fat stores that are all over your body, and that's how you become less in weight and reduce in size. Now, carbohydrates are a macro which makes up the calories. So there's 4 calories every gram of carbohydrate, and there's also 4 calories every gram of protein, which is the other macro, and the final macro is fat, and there's 9 calories per every 1 gram of fat. So this is all of the food that we eat is made up of these macros. Now, as I was just explaining there, that's what calories in and calories out, that's what weight loss comes down to. So just because you're eating carbohydrates, that doesn't affect that rule of calories coming in, calories coming out. It doesn't affect it whatsoever. So you could eat a diet that's completely 100% carbohydrates. You could just eat potatoes, chips, bread all day. And as long as you're in a calorie deficit where your calories coming in are less than the calories you expend, then you will lose weight. And this happens time and time again. There's loads of studies and research to show this. I've experienced this personally when I was the leanest I ever was when I did a photo shoot last year. I was eating bread every single day right up until the photo shoot, and I was losing body fat every single day because I was in what's called that calorie deficit. So this is the first key thing to think about, that why it's a mistake to think that you can't eat carbs or you need to cut carbs out. What you need to do is manage your calories across the day and over time, and that's the way that you will lose weight. Now, the second thing that's why it's a mistake is if you're cutting out carbohydrates is a lot of people like carbs, right? Chips, potatoes, bread, these things are really nice foods, and a lot of us enjoy this. If you're then cutting out these foods, you're basically restricting yourself, and you're restricting of something that you enjoy. And what often happens, what does happen when you restrict something, you often think about it even more, you crave it even more. Whether you're aware of that sort of consciously or subconsciously, that happens. And this is where you can become more likely to binge on food. So if you've been kind of depriving yourself all week of bread and carbohydrates, that's when maybe there's an opportunity where at the weekend you go to the supermarket, you see a nice French stick, and you just kind of give in and buy it, and then you kind of just binge on it because you think you haven't had it for ages, and you just end up binging it. And what can happen, that then causes us to have poor relationships with food, and because we've binged on so many calories, we overeat, and then that affects the whole kind of calories thing. So again, that's another reason why it's a mistake, why you shouldn't really be cutting out foods that you enjoy. Another reason is that carbohydrates are a really important food source. Every single vegetable is a form of carbohydrate, fruits as well, potatoes. Often most carbohydrates are coming from all plant-based foods, and these are full of nutrients, minerals. If you cut out a whole food group, think about all of those different nutrients and minerals you're going to be missing out on. That's why people that go on keto often may have deficiencies, and this can be an issue if you're cutting out things to the extent where your body is now not getting the nutrients that it needs. So that's another reason why it's a mistake, that you shouldn't be cutting out carbohydrates, and you shouldn't have to sort of worry about whether it's going to affect you losing weight. And the next thing is energy levels, and carbohydrates are a really important source of energy. And you need it for brain function, your exercise, your steps, general movement, mainly more high intensity exercise. So if you're cutting out carbs, these workouts are going to be affected. You're probably going to train less with less intensity, and you're probably just going to feel pretty crappy and shitty. And that's not a good thing, again, because if you're then doing less, you're doing less workouts, or your workouts are less, the performance of those workouts are not as good, you're probably going to be moving less, and you're expending less energy. And again, as we're saying, that key fundamental energy balance is now affected that equation negatively. So these are just some of the things that, why it's really important that you don't actually cut carbs out. And what should you do instead? You might be thinking this, well, I've heard all these different things, and when you might have even had some success with kind of reducing your carbs. And this isn't me saying that you shouldn't kind of reduce carbs at all. What I'm saying is you just need to think about it, rather than thinking that you're reducing carbs, you're reducing calories, and that's why you would lose weight if you do. And reducing carbs is a strategy that I use, and most people probably should use to a certain extent, of a way of reducing their calories. A really simple example of this is that if one of your meals is steak, chips, and vegetables, you could tweak that meal and change the portion. You could keep the steak size the same, you could keep the vegetables the same, you could even increase the size of them, because then that helps you fill you up more. But then you could just kind of reduce the amount of chips that you have. So you're not actually cutting carbs out altogether, but you're just reducing that portion size, and that's just reducing the calories a little bit, and then that can help you get into that calorie deficit, which obviously is the reason that you would lose fat and weight. So another thing to think about that is a really good solution, and something that you may well be able to use to help you lose weight and not have to cut carbs out, is to think about when you eat your carbohydrates. So if you're someone, like a lot of people, where your evening meal tends to be that meal that maybe you eat with your family and your kids, and that's that meal where you kind of sit down, it's a bit more social, and that's the meal where you may have more carbs than what you do. So you kind of plan that into your day and factor that in, that you're going to have more calories and more carbohydrates in your evening meal. So then what you can do is that in your other meals during the day, breakfast and lunch, you can just reduce the amount of carbs. You could even have a no carb meal if you really wanted to. You could have like an omelette with some cheese and some vegetables where there's barely any carbohydrates in that meal. Or you could just have something that's quite low carbohydrate. And the idea with it there is that you're just basically shifting when you actually have those carbs throughout the day. And across the day, what you've then done is manage your calories in a way that you still hit your calorie goal, but you've just kind of shifted where you have those calories, and you're having more calories in the evening, and that gives you more room to have those carbohydrates. So that's the key thing, that it gives you so much flexibility that way. As I say, a lot of people, and again, if you're eating out, typically when you're eating out, those calories are going to be higher. Typically carbs are going to be higher in meals out if you're eating out. So that's a really good strategy to be able to still kind of have the foods that you enjoy and still hit your calorie goal. So that's some of the things that I just wanted to talk about and just clarify. This is a really good, as I say, strategy that you can use. It gives you that confidence to be able to continue eating carbs. You're just changing the portion sizes. You really can eat any carbs that you want within reason. If you're just eating kind of really highly processed foods, crisps, donuts, like white bread, kind of white rolls, pastries, that sort of thing, these foods do have carbs in, but they do have lots of fats in as well, and they don't do a great job of filling you up, and they have quite high calories in because they have lots of oils and hidden oils and stuff like that, which contains lots of fat. If you're eating lots of them, then that may make sticking to these calorie targets a lot harder because they don't fill you up, and the calories that you get are a lot for the amount that you eat. So ideally, most of the time, you want to be sticking to whole food sources that are not processed too much. And things like potatoes are a great example of that. They're not really, other than kind of chopping them up and maybe adding in some seasoning and maybe a little bit of your own oil, you can see how all of a sudden that there's not been much processing to them, and they're still going to do a really good job of kind of filling you up, and the calories are not going to be excessively high because you haven't edited or processed them too much. So there are a few things I wanted to cover in this video. I hope this has helped. If you have any questions, I'd love to hear if you've got any questions about carbs or anything to do with weight loss or fat loss. This is what I specialize in helping people kind of in their 30s up to 50s in that period where maybe they've gained a bit of weight and they're going through the process where they're quite busy with their career and their family, and there's quite a few kind of myths and beliefs that they've had kind of over the years, and they just feel a bit lost with things. And that's generally where I help people the most to lose a bit of weight and feel better, healthier, stronger and fitter. So please let me know if you've got any questions. I will leave it there. Thanks very much for watching.